So this brings us to week 8 of our meditation class. We had a long break last week. We had the 35th anniversary celebrations here at Shilai Temple. So we had a break with the meditation. So, as we always do, before we get started, how is everyone doing? Yeah, good. Okay, so today we will recap first with what we covered the previous class, and then we get into the details. So we've covered everything up until sensations and mind. So who can help me understand what it means to have mindfulness of body? We're recapping every week to make sure we've got it. Okay, what is mindfulness of body? What are the ways in which we can be mindful of the body? Breath? Okay, good. Breath. What about postures? Postures, right? The constituents of the body. Remember how we talked about how disgusting it can be when we start contemplating the constituents of the body? Okay. What about sensations? How can we become mindful of sensations? What are the categories of sensations? Uh-oh. Okay. So pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Okay, what about the mind? How can we be mindful of the mind? I'll give you a hint. I'll put the next slide up. Okay. So as we remember from 2 weeks ago, mindfulness of mind means that we are ever aware of the states of mind, the coarse states of mind. So we're aware whether we have instances of greed, anger, or ignorance, the contracted mind, the distracted mind, the undeveloped mind, or the great mind. And likewise, whether we have the wholesome manifestations of the mind, which are the opposite of what has been mentioned. So what is the opposite of greed? Generosity, kindness, okay? What is the opposite of anger? Loving kindness and compassion. Okay, what is the opposite of delusion? What are we working for with meditation? Starts with W. Wisdom. Yeah, that's good. So the opposite of delusion is wisdom, right? So what is the opposite of the contracted mind? Remember what contracted mind refers to? So it's like mental stagnation. So in everyday terms, mental blur. Okay, so if you have mental blur, you become aware of that. So what is the opposite of mental blur or the contracted mind? Mental acuity, right? Which is developed through one-pointed concentration, right? It's when your mind is very clear. So there's no other way to explain it other than that. The mind is acutely aware. Okay, what about the distracted mind? What is the opposite of the distracted mind? The focused mind. The ability to focus on the breath for a prolonged period of time. Okay, let's move on. What is the opposite of the undeveloped mind? The developed mind. Duh. So what is the developed mind? Remember we say that when a mind is undeveloped, it has no faith, right? So the underlying factor that takes away this faith is the lack of faith in one's potentiality to become the Buddha. So that is the underlying factor from a Buddhist point of view. Okay. So when we have no faith in the fact that we can improve, then we have an undeveloped mind. So a mind that has no self-confidence will naturally be able to give rise to negative thoughts, give rise to thoughts of self-defeat, give rise to the mind, which is always dwelling in negativity perpetually. Okay? So this type of mind is undeveloped. So the opposite of the undeveloped mind is the great mind, the mind that has full faith in one's potentiality to become the Buddha. Okay? Can everyone for a moment give rise to a mind that, yeah, I have potentiality to perfect oneself? Yeah? Who can do this today? Okay, let's all repeat after me. I am a Buddha. Okay, one, two, three. I am a Buddha. Okay, we need to have faith in that. Okay, the faith that we can be just like Shakyamuni Buddha behind me. Okay, so a mind like this will give rise to the great mind. Okay, the great mind giving rise to the great body, as we say, the body of the Mahayana. Okay, so with meditation, it's very important that we become acutely aware of every state of mind. So this is the third base of mindfulness in the whole scope of the four bases. So at this point, it is a very natural awareness of the course existence of a state of mind. Okay. So at any one point, we reflect and see whether we have any of these and whether we have the opposite wholesome states. Okay. So at this point, it is kind of like life is going very fast. Our mind is going very fast. But at any one point, what mind do I have? Okay. Remember how last week we said that as soon as we become mindful of any state of mind, the mindfulness itself is a wholesome state of mind. So in and of itself, it is a precursor to stopping, to giving ourselves the opportunity to make the right choices mentally, okay, with our reactions to life. So this is already very powerful. So the third base of mindfulness is already very difficult if we don't have a very calm mind. So before we get into the four bases and contemplate on the details of the four bases, it's important that we are able to maintain a still mind for at least half an hour. So it means that in our meditation, if we're able to focus on the breath, focus on whatever technique you're using for at least 60–70% of the time, at this point, the mind is calm enough to move on to the active contemplations. Okay. So this is the third one. Today, we're going to talk about the fourth one. This will be something which is one notch higher in terms of difficulty and in terms of the requisite conditions required to partake in such mental exercise. Okay. So the next one is the fourth base of mindfulness, right? Mindfulness of mental dharmas. So if you want to use basic terminology to understand this, it's mental events. Okay, let's close our eyes for 10 seconds and just observe it without any type of ideas. And now open your eyes. How many mental events have you noticed in that 10 seconds of closing your eyes? Who would like to share with the rest of the class? Who had one? Only one? No one? Who had two? Who had three? Who had four? Five? Six? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, a lot. So the way we become aware that the mind is acutely aware is when we notice many thoughts. Okay, we remember how each consciousness only survives for less than a nanosecond, or probably even less, right? So the moment we become acutely aware means that we see everything that's happening, albeit so subtle as the nuances of the mind. These mental events may be so soft, so undetected, that all these add up to be a driving force pushing our life in a direction that we're not aware of. Okay, so with this particular level of mindfulness, we're able to get to the core of what causes dissatisfaction, what causes happiness and joy in life. So it's a very important one. Good question. Without a definition, it's very hard to get to the crux of the issue. So a mental event is the rising and ceasing of one consciousness, which is very quick. So in the span that you had given rise to your rupa, your Buddha body come into contact with the outside world, giving rise to sensations, giving rise to perceptions, reacting with volitions, and repeating itself, right? So one consciousness or one arising of the consciousness is so small that thousands of consciousnesses would have passed by in 10 seconds, probably more. So the finer we can see it, the better. So a mental event is the rising or ceasing of a consciousness. What our student here talked about is the actual process of the five skandhas working to give rise to subjective experience. So this means that one experience or one full circle, one closed circle, probably already has millions of consciousnesses arising and ceasing before we actually go through the whole process of the five skandhas. Okay, so these mental events can be considered in broad strokes the consciousnesses arising and ceasing. Okay, very subtle, very subtle. So it requires very deep focus. Okay. So the mental events, they need to become aware of, right? We need to become aware of them, but it's not enough to stay there. We need to see them through right views, we say in Buddhism. Okay. So to recap, what would be considered the right views? The understanding of impermanence, the understanding of non-self, okay, the understanding of causes and conditions and so forth, right? So this is to see the whole subjective experience through the lens of the Dharma, okay? So subjective experience is what we experience in our lives, okay? So have you noticed that with meditation, a big focal point is our own experiences, right? Reason being is because guided by the Dharma, we can observe how the psychology within us works, right? So when we see how things work, we kind of become a therapist to ourselves. We see very clearly the mental events leading to dissatisfaction, the mental events leading to wisdom, to compassion, to all the wholesome stuff that we have. Okay, very powerful indeed. So the way we have to do so is that there is a particular formula that's mentioned in the Nikayas to be able to reach this stage. Okay? So using the five skandhas as our object of discernment or mindfulness, we should say, there are three things we should become aware of. The first thing is to become aware of that particular instance. Okay, such is, if we're talking about the five skandhas, what are the five skandhas? Rupa, body, which entails sense objects, sensory organs, and the consciousness that arises, giving rise to the ability to sense. Okay? So with this body that we have, so let's say we have a sense of cold. Okay? Such is cold, such is the body coming into contact with the outside world, right? Through the tactile senses. So we have tactile sensations, such is tactile sensations. Okay? If you put your hand out like this, let's do this just for the sake of it. What do you feel? Cold, right? Why didn't we feel it here? It's because now we're focusing on it, right? Such is the sensation of, not the sensation yet, Now is the tactile sensation or the tactile reception of a particular sense object, which in this sense is cold. The next thing is, the next thing we need to do is, how does this arise? Why do we have such senses? It's a very simple question, okay, requiring a very simple answer. Human ecology has made us receptive to certain senses in the hope of survival. Okay, all these are meant to help us survive, right? If it's cold, we wear something. If we don't feel cold, we're going to die because we're not going to wear anything, right? So such is body, such is the arising of the body. Okay, in this sense, the tactile sensation, the tactile sensory organ as well as the object in this sense, right? So this is a very important awareness. And we need to understand that for this to arise in the first place, we need to have this consciousness, the arising of consciousness, right? It's kind of like the thing that makes things aware, the consciousness. So with the arising of consciousness, we have the arising of all the other five skandhas. So in this sense, we're talking about tactile sensations, tactile organs coming into contact with the object of cold, right? And then we know that with each arising and ceasing of a consciousness, that particular tactile organ receiving information will cease, and it'll reappear a little bit different from the previous, right? So that is why when you have your hand like that, it's not going to be the same sensory object that we perceive through the sensory organs. Very soon you'll feel differences, right? Because of the arising and ceasing of consciousness many times. So our experiences are actually linked together through the passage of time with our misunderstanding that consciousness is one linear line. It's actually arising and ceasing of consciousness. So knowing that the consciousness gives rise to bodily organ recepting the sensory object, we know that this is like a very standard thing, right? Then we move on to sensations. Cold is not pleasant. It's a pleasant sensation. How does unpleasant sensation arise? It's because of our human instincts, right? And it's because of consciousness that this arises without perception. The reason why we give rise to the perception that, okay, in the past, I've had a similar experience. My parents told me this is something called cold. So this mental construct that this is cold, right, is also capable of doing so is because of the consciousness that arises. Okay. So we know that this arises. We also know that at that instant, it ceases already, and the next instance of a consciousness giving rise to the next understanding of cold arises again. So let's do an experiment. When you feel this is cold, does the mental quality of the understanding of cold change over time if you hold it out for a while? Yes, right? As the hand gets colder, the mind is not stuck on a particular sensation of cold because it is arising and ceasing. So the mind is able to perceive that the hand is getting colder, right? Does this have a very powerful meaning behind it? Yes. If we are able to be very clear with these three aspects of applying mindfulness to our five skandhas, we're able to very quickly pick up on things as they progress and deconstruct elements of our mental events that lead to dissatisfaction. It's very precise. It's more precise than any type of Western psychology as we know in terms of self-help. Okay, the mind becomes so acutely aware of what's happening with the mental events that we're able to use the right interventions to bring about the best result. Okay, so this is done not just for body sensations, but perception and then volition. We know that we give rise to volition because of the arising of consciousness, right? We also know that volition is given rise to inspired by previous instances of volition. So let's say we have an aversion to a mouse. Let's pretend this is a real mouse. Who does not like rats and mice? Who does not like rats and mice? Okay, so that's already a volition away from mice. Sorry. Okay, aversion away from mice, right? So every time you come into contact with this mouse, right? What comes to mind very quickly is the whole process of uh, the body coming into contact with this. Okay, so sense object with sense organ, right? And then we give rise to the sensation of unpleasant. The sight of a rat, unpleasant to most people, okay? And then what happens after that is we perceive, okay, this is called a rat. At this point, it's still very reactive, very automatic. The next thing is we see it, we remember that this is a rat. All of a sudden, your volition is conditioning your current experience. Hey, Cynthia, this is not good. Remember to hate it. Remember to hate it, right? So you hate it again, and it becomes a vicious cycle. Every time you see this, the hate will deepen and deepen and deepen. So at this point, such is volition. Okay, such is the cause of volition, previous experiences, of course, and the ability to have volition because of consciousness. And then such is the ceasing of such a volition. Okay, because we know that when we give rise to hate, it's not a constant hate. It is arising of hate, ceasing again, arising of hate, ceasing again. But we only see that, the hate, right? So the moment we have breaks in between the hates, it's easy for us to change at that split moment. I don't want to hate anymore. Okay, let me change my mentality to say, oh, it's just a mouse. It's nothing more than a mouse. Okay, that way we have a neutral mindset. Likewise, if we want to go further and say, I should feel compassion towards all beings. So the moment we come into contact with a mouse, from this point on, we're going to say, oh, that's a cute mouse. I should have loving kindness and compassion towards that cute little mouse. And this can happen at that moment. Okay, as soon as we become aware of the state, the arising and the ceasing. Okay, so this is the pattern in which we apply to our mental events as we become acutely aware of the fluctuations of the mind. Okay, so bear in mind that the fourth base of mindfulness requires acute yet gentle awareness because we're bringing our mind to the impermanence, the fluid nature of the mind. We're working with this impermanence to transform ourselves. Very powerful indeed. So the last part, which is very difficult, is to notice that the consciousness is arising and ceasing all the time. So that is why with the four immeasurables, the word immeasurable means that our mind expands so that that loving kindness applies to all sentient beings regardless, even to your enemies. And this has a very transformative process in which we no longer have a discriminating mind towards beings, let alone human, animals, and so forth, right? To all beings. So with the four bases of mindfulness, the moment we give when we give rise to mindfulness of that particular state of mind, the mindfulness itself is already powerful enough to stop that particular thought developing down the wrong way. Okay, mindfulness itself is a wholesome state of mind, but it has to be a complete mindfulness, whereby because at this moment we're so clear that there's no other thoughts other than looking into previously created mental grooves, right? It's kind of like you have a dental cavity, right? You're just looking at it. You're not trying to entertain it. You're not trying to put more sugar into it. You're just looking at it very clearly. So at this point, the mindfulness that should have already developed at this point is continuous in terms of the consciousness arises and ceases. We're very clear of the process. So there's no space for your mind to re-entertain unwholesome thoughts, right? So to know that the mouse is nothing more than just a mouse, right? Just mindful of what it is in essence, seeing this through the lens of the Dharma, okay, is already very powerful. There's a next stage beyond this, which we're going to talk about. So this stage brings our mindfulness onto the issue. The next thing we're talking about is how we uproot the problem, right? So five aggregates, as mentioned before, are the way in which we experience the world around us, the subjective experience, right? So it pretty much means how we make sense of the world, right? So body, sensation, what is the next one? Perception, volition. And what makes all this happen? Consciousness. This direction, so it's like this, yeah, okay. Consciousness, okay? So the five aggregates is the whole psychology of ourselves. So at this point, when we become aware of the state arising, the cause of the arising and the cause of the ceasing, we take our practice one step further. So everything up until this point is acute, gentle, passive contemplation. The next stage is actually what becomes what we consider active contemplation of the truth, actively seeing the world through the Dharma. Okay? So to see that our tactile sensations, our physical organs which receive information, the sensory objects of sight, sound, taste, touch, all these are impermanent. They change every split second. This cold is very different from the feeling of cold 1 second later, for example. But we understand the impermanence of all things. Sensations. You have a particular sensation now, it's going to be very different, probably a second later, right? Perception. The way we understand something is continually undergoing evolution. It changes all the time. Okay, maybe our understanding of, for example, the mouse will change over time, will change in 1 split second with your every nanosecond of existence, right? We have one more nanosecond of experience, means we're synthesizing that with previous experience. So there's no one experience that's going to be the same forever. Volition. This is the thing that changes so crazily fast, it's not funny. Human relationships, objects we like, we all go through this continual process of change, right? We like someone, we dislike something, it happens very quickly, okay? Just like the poor mouse we used as an example. We don't like it, but we can change it. We can like it later on, right? So with our consciousness, we understand that this is the fundamental cause of all the changes in life and the subjective experience we have. The satisfaction is when we relate to our over-attachment to our subjective experiences. Okay. How do we try to find happiness in life? Who can share with me how we conventionally find happiness in life? What do we do to feel happy? Okay, meditation. What else do we do? Things we like. Ooh, things we like. All these are bound under the umbrella of subjective experience. We experience something we think is going to make us happy. What happens if that is taken away? Oh no, I want more, right? How else do human beings find happiness and joy in life? Okay, to introspect, look within, work within, that's good. So I think all of us here are wise people. I understand that for most people, uh, let's say, how many people are in California? Like 60 million? For the 60 million people we have in California, like the majority find happiness outside, right? For those who are faithful, they find their peace with their religion. But for the not faithful, they probably turn to materialistic stuff. But we understand that every experience is short-lived. Your trip to Disneyland will be for 24 hours, or probably less, like 12 hours, realistically speaking. And then 12 hours later, it'll be like, I miss it, right? I want more. You're not going to be able to satiate that craving for sensory stimulation. So all these are subjective experiences. To see that attachment to these subjective experiences, which are external, okay, when we have it, we're going to think we're happy. But the moment we lose it is when reality strikes. Okay, it's not going to be there forever. It's the same for loved ones. It's the same for materialistic stuff. It's even the same when we get attached to the joys of meditation. So like, let's say we get into good deep meditation and then we give rise to rapture, what we consider Dharma joy or meditative bliss. If we get attached to that feeling or that sensation of joy, right? The next time we sit down, we don't get it. It's like, oh, I'm still seeking the external. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so for non-self, it means that there is nothing in this world that has a self-determining nature, be it ourselves or things around us, right? Non-self in terms of us, emptiness in terms of everything around us. Okay, everything changes, nothing will stay the same forever. And to understand this is quite transformational, right? Because we start to let go of this vice, this grip that everything needs to be the way I want it to be. Everything needs to be in a particular way. Otherwise, I'm not happy. Okay. I'm sure you've all experienced this, your boss at work. It has to be like that. If it deviates, no good. Okay. You're this close to getting fired. Okay. So a lot of people have silly expectations about what things should be. But Buddhism does not become pessimistic in the sense that, okay, we just let life take its course and, we just let the train uh, go loose and let it just, go crazy. It's not like that. So as a true Buddhist practitioner, what we do is instead of focusing on what things should be and what we want things to be and getting so attached to that foreseeable outcome, we take a step back and we focus on the causes and conditions required for certain outcomes. So let's say for us, we want to meditate well, or we feel that we have a lot of greed. We need to address this greed. If we want to meditate well, but we cannot because we have a crossfire of incompatible motives, we have a lot of anger. We need to find a way to get rid of that anger. Okay. Likewise, if we want to sit down and meditate, but the body is not in good shape, we need to get the body in good shape, and so forth. So a Buddhist is someone who sees the impermanence of all things, the innate emptiness. But because of emptiness, we see the hope in it. We see that with impermanence, there's the opportunity to pave way to success through putting in the right factors in our experiences. So this is what makes or breaks a Buddhist. Okay. So there are times when people meditate, start out with meditation, of course, and they like it nice and quiet, like dead quiet. The moment there's like external sounds, I cannot meditate here, it's too noisy, right? This is the time when we're too attached to noise. In that, when there's external noise, we're taken away each time. But the moment we forego with the idea that everything has to be quiet, it can be as noisy as what it is, but I can find peace within. I can find peace with my breath. I can find peace knowing that all that is external, right? At this point, meditation could be when you're walking, when you're standing, when you're washing the dishes, when you're vacuuming the floor, and when you're doing chores around the house, doing the laundry, even when you're just getting about your everyday life, driving. Okay, you can find peace when you set the mind on the task at hand and only do that when you're doing that. Okay, so that is when we give uh, release of attachments to how things should be, to the form of meditation it should be. Okay, when we let go of these forms of meditation, then every day, every opportunity is a possibility for practice. Okay? Okay, so for now, this is enough for the theory. Any questions? Okay, I thought you were like, okay. Oh no, these are the three we consider Dharma seals that we use to observe the five skandhas. So we're using the lens of the Dharma. We're taking away the lens of delusion, right? And using the lens of the Dharma to see everything. So what is the opposite of impermanence? Is the understanding that everything should last forever. Okay, so that is delusion, right? To see that everything external has no dissatisfaction. We should just live life according to our wishes. That is delusion. It is difficult to understand, but let me make sure that we do understand. Okay, if we say non-self, if we take non-self at face value, if we take it only by the word, we can kill ourselves. We can hit ourselves like this because there's no self. It's not going to hurt. We can slap ourselves continuously because there's no self, right? This is the incorrect understanding of non-self. There is still this conventional self, the temporary self we have in this lifetime, okay? If you pinch yourself, it's going to hurt. So yes, there's going to be a conventional existence. The reason why you are seeking the Dharma is because you know that conventionally there is a state of being that needs to develop over time to be better, right? It's not to say that nothing exists. If nothing exists, it's nihilism, right? It's to say that everything and everyone has no self-determining nature. Let's say we want to be Superman. Can we say, I want to be Superman and you become a Superman? No. Uh, is it Superman who is scared of kryptonite? Yeah, that's him. Yeah. And then, and then if everyone is self-determining in nature, can we say we can walk on water and then we can walk on water? No, right? It means that our conventional existence is accumulation of causing conditions. And these keep changing over time. Believe it or not, with our aging, every nanosecond we're getting 1 nanosecond older. We're losing more body cells that we can ever keep track of. So how can we say that there is one static you? There's no one static you. And because everything is changing, there's no self-determining nature. Okay? If you're old, you want to be young. It's not like, I want to be young and you become young. Right? So in the passage of time, we can change the causes and conditions that we can change to bring about the best results. Okay? Yeah, we're made of many things. Water, in the traditional Indian way of seeing things, the four elements. So earth, wind, water, and fire, right? So let's say Logan is Logan. He's conventionally considered Logan. But let's say Logan does not drink for about 4 days. Well, we know that medically speaking, 4 days without water, you're dead, right? So Logan will no longer appear as Logan. He will be a corpse. No, not in that way. Okay, so Logan is currently someone who is practicing well on the Buddhist path. If he continues to put in the right elements in his practice, if he puts in the right causing conditions, one day he'll become a Buddha. He's now Logan, but if he practices well, he's going to be Buddha Logan, Sakyamuni Buddha, Logan Buddha. Yeah. And the same is true for everyone. So does everyone understand the understanding of non-self? Okay. No determining nature of all things. If we look at the root word in the Sanskrit form shunyata, okay, Sri, it means to swell. Okay, to swell. When something swells, the inside of the swelling is empty, hollowness. So shunyata in the Sanskrit word, the root word Sri means to swell up with a hollow core. So emptiness actually means hollow at its core. It doesn't mean emptiness as in you can't see anything, which is nihilism. It's more like the core of what makes us who we are is empty in nature, right? So let's say you have a nature of anger. It means you'll never change. But because you don't have a fixed nature, everything is changeable. It's malleable to either wholesome direction or unwholesome direction. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so next time we say there's non-self, don't go hitting yourself and trying to kill yourself, thinking that everything is empty. Okay, same thing. Emptiness is So emptiness is a general term relating to all things. Non-self refers to sentient beings, okay, no self nature of things. But emptiness is no self nature of phenomena. Okay, one relates to sentient life, one relates to everything. So emptiness is the overarching term. Non-self is directed towards sentient life, but it means the same thing. Okay. So shall we move on to the practices? So we have a bit of time. For today, let's start off with the slow walking meditation, and then we're going to get into the seated meditation. Okay, so without further ado, let's stand up. Clear yourself of the clutter physically, like any belts or anything, jewelry. We're going to have our hands by the side of our bodies, and then we're going to smile, relax, and as we breathe in deeply through the nose and breathe out through the mouth, we're going to make the vow to forget about the past, not worry about the future, but to be grounded in the present moment. Breathing in, we breathe in the light and compassion of wisdom. And then as we breathe out, ignorance, anger, tension, and greed. Let's do this for a couple of times more. Slowly bring your focus to your abdomen. Find a small point as fine as possible, as still as possible. For gentlemen, 2 fingers width down from the belly button. For ladies, 3 fingers width above the belly button. Try to pinpoint that point as fine as possible to the point where you're able to see a small space, probably about the diameter of a pin tip, and just keep your focus there as you naturally breathe in and out through your nose. What happens, you'll find, is as the focus becomes acute, the breathing becomes very clear to the point where it feels like the entire body is breathing. as you continue to focus on that small point and breathing naturally. Invite yourself to let go of the urge to tense up and to completely relax. There is nothing to hold on to. Slowly bring your focus to the top of your head and mentally ask yourself to relax, relaxing the scalp, the forehead, eyebrows, all the muscles around the eyeball, and relaxing the eyeball itself, relaxing the whole nasal passage, the cheeks, the jaw, the tongue, the neck, shoulders, arms, and forearms completely relaxing, relaxing all the tension in the chest, abdomen, the entire spine, completely relaxing from top to bottom. Relax the pelvis and let the tailbone drop downwards. Relax the thighs, the knees. Allow the knees to gently bend forward. Relax the calves and shins, ankles and feet. As we release all the tension in the body, we can sense a very firm connection between the feet and the ground below. Allow the body to continue to relax as we wear a gentle smile. And place your focus on the sensations under your feet as it makes contact with the ground below. Slowly bring your focus back to the entire body, feeling the sensations of the skin against the clothes and against the air around us. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths in from the nose and out from the mouth. And slowly, when you are ready, to open your eyes and reorientate. Okay, we will now get ready for our walking meditation. Remember that's 2 points of focus. It's either acute awareness or mindfulness on the sensations of the soles of the feet. Okay, the heel pressing down, transferring weight, toes lifting off, next foot coming down, being very clear of all the sensations. This is called a narrow mindfulness. If you want a general state of mindfulness, you can observe the entire body in its entirety as we take one foot in front of the other. Remember to maintain a straight back. Okay, eyes resting on the person in front with a gentle gaze and focusing on the body. If you have urges to look around, focus. We already have a lot of sensory stimuli in our minds, let alone external sensory stimuli. Okay. So we're going to try to walk nice and slow. Okay. Gentle smile. Again, if your mind gives rise to the reception of sound or whatever senses, or if you give rise to emotions, thoughts, or whatnot, again, the golden rule, ask yourself, what should I be doing right now? Okay. And slowly bring your focus to what we're doing. Okay? So let's make sure our belongings are clear of the walkway. And we will be facing your left-hand side direction as we begin with our slow walking meditation. There'll be 2 lanes, inner and outer, and we'll be walking nice and slow. So we may now begin. For those at home, remember to always mentally set a route to take and proceed with your walking meditation in a safe manner. The hands should be by the sides of your body so that there is minimal tension. As we take one foot in front of the other, try to slow down the switching of feet as much as possible so that we are channeling our mindfulness to the task at hand. Stop where you are, stand at shoulder width, and take 3 deep breaths. Slowly, as we bring our attention back to the body, we focus on the sensations of the entire body. Let go of the urge to keep walking forward. The body is still, but the mind may still be walking. And slowly open your eyes to reorientate. And return to your cushions. So remember that as we sit down, to wrap your knees nice and tightly, especially in colder weather. And we will begin by making sure that we are free of any jewelry that restricts our blood flow. And as we get ready, we're going to slowly adjust the body by bending forward and backwards, forwards, backwards, to the left, right, left, and then recenter. We're going to turn to the left and then to the right, left, and recenter. We are now going to rotate in a clockwise direction. And anti-clockwise. And recenter. And now we're going to get ourselves in the 7-point meditation mudra. So hands in the meditation mudra. And then adjust your bottom and back to be straight. Push back on your shoulders, tuck in your chin, tap the tips of your tongues against the palate. Gently close your eyes. And for those who have glasses, none of you, that's good. Should be off by now. And we will now very slowly begin our meditation by doing the procedure to enter. So to give rise to the right intentions of loving kindness, compassion, and renunciation. Remember that we do meditation for a clear mind so that we can be of help to the people around us. To take refuge in the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as the teacher, the teachings in the community of practitioners, and slowly maintain a gentle mental space with a gentle smile as we slowly bring our focus to the breathing. Choose your method of breathing meditation, and we will begin our meditation session with 3 strikes of the wooden fish and 1 strike to conclude. Keeping your eyes closed, take 3 deep breaths. Bringing your focus to the body, we are going to slowly bend it forward, backwards, to the left, to the right, and then rotate in a circular manner, clockwise, and anti-clockwise, and recenter. We're going to join our palms together and rub them, and massage your eyes with your palms. Massage your scalp, and then your neck. Rub your palms again. Cross your arms over to massage your shoulders, arms, and forearms. Rub your palms again. And pat down your chest, abdomen, thighs, knees and calves. And then pat down the bottom and lower back. Rub your palms again. Massage your lower back. And as we breathe in deeply, bend down and backwards and exhale with your mouth. Again. Massage. Breathe in deeply. Hold your breath as we bend down and backwards. Exhale. And now we're going to slowly take off the towels. And when you are ready to slowly release your feet, one at a time. If need be, give your ankles a wriggle. And when you are ready to slowly and mindfully replace the shoes as softly as possible. Okay, and as we join our palms, we're going to look to your right hand side and read together our verse of dedication of merits. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May chant, Pure Land, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. Okay, thank you everyone for coming to week 8 of our meditation class. Next week will be our final week where we do a complete recap and finish off our meditation with the 4 immeasurables. In the meantime, for those who are keen on the English chanting service, it's happening right now. So we may make our way to the pagoda. Thank you.